quality of learning expression itself is a problematic one. Different people consider different kinds of things as high quality of learning. That must really be understood. Unfortunately, the current understanding is that quality of learning means that learning which will give a person some employment, better opportunities in the society, in the economy. However, that can be only a small part of the quality of learning. Education is supposed to make fine human beings, that who have compassion, who love, who think, who create new things, both through their head and hand. Now, instead of that, we have somehow come to what you would call bookish learning. And whenever we ask such questions and whenever we discuss this issue, then we are really thinking of that bookish learning, how to do it better. Let's first understand how do we improve the quality of learning in that wider sense, where employment opportunity or better status in society or higher privileges in society as a result of your learning is only a small part. The major part is of making a rational human being who asks questions, who finds answers, a loving human being who loves people, who can work together. Now, if this is the kind of quality of education we want, then it is important to understand that the teacher has to be of a very different kind. Current system of making teachers is that either you recruit a person who has just graduated or passed his or her 12th standard or even done the postgraduate degree, but no particular training program. Although after the Right to Education Act, it has been made compulsory, obligatory according to law, that the person should be trained. Now again, training, I have been learning in a training institution 50 years ago, and ever since I know that training is considered to be by all those who are getting their training as only a ritual, clearly with the assumption that they may learn today in order to get a degree, and so they may be called a B.Ed or a MAid, but knowing full well that it has no implications or it will have no help to them when they go to the school. Therefore, what is most important is developing high quality of teachers, and this can be done only if we professionalize the teacher training program. Just as a doctor after class 12 goes to a medical education and maybe spends 5 years, 7 years, and then he becomes a doctor. An engineer after 12th standard goes to an engineering college and spends several years studying engineering. Similarly, teachers must be of that kind. We have been struggling for a long duration of teacher preparation program after 12th standard for a long time. As long ago as 1955, I remember one of my very senior educationists with whom I have little time to work also later, had recommended a 4-year course. And we have been of course fighting for it for a long time. Fortunately again, only recently a 4-year course has been approved. So in a way we are now in the right direction. Future teachers will probably be those who have undergone a professional course of a long duration, where they have developed expertise to be able to really control or manage or manipulate, or should I say take the process of learning in such a manner that they can ensure high quality for every child. However, that leaves us a more important question. These people come in future, and your question is, how do we improve the quality of learning right now? Right? And there are teachers, and all these teachers cannot be replaced with new teachers in the foreseeable future. It will require maybe 30 years. So what do we do in 30 years? That's a very important question that you have, in a way you are asking. For that, what is important is that we give autonomy to the teachers. Currently, teachers do not do anything that they want to do. They are all the time receiving directions from outside. In fact, when I interact with my teachers, many teachers keep on telling me, sir, there are experiments one after other. There is one program, and by the time we finish that program or that project, we have another project, and there is a third project, there is a fourth project. How can there be continuity? And I think they have a very valid point. Finland, you all know about Finland. Finland is a country which currently tops in the competitive, international competitive tests of learning. For the several years they have now been topping. And there, what is important is, for the last 30 years, they have one policy which they have not changed. So there has to be a stability. That policy framework, it's not enough to talk about learning in the classroom. Learning in the classroom is affected by lots of external factors. And those external factors, as I said, one is the policy background. So policy backdrop has to be more stable. The second is also important is political consensus for this purpose. Newspaper reports are full of talk about saffronization of education, education by the left. All leftist historians have spoiled education, given a wrong history and things like that. So in a way, political ideology is coming in the way, and teaching learning material, the kind of curriculum that is developed, all that is being influenced by political ideologies and political differences. And therefore, again, a teacher has great difficulty in what to do in such situation. So the second important thing is there should be political consensus that, well, this is the kind of learning we want. I defined what is quality of learning. This is the kind of learning we want, and for this kind of learning, no ideology is important. If everybody is a rational human being, you give him ability to think logically, analyze logically, examine critically, and create his own ideas, then whether it is ideology of the Bharatiya Janata Party or of the Communist Party or of the whichever party, they can always critique it, question it, and then come to their own conclusion through their reasoning ability, what is right, what ought to be done in the present situation. So if we have to improve quality of learning, then not only should the policy be there, then the curriculum should be of that kind. Third, when I am talking about this curriculum, then it is also important to understand curriculum should not emphasize what I said in the beginning, bookish learning. It should emphasize reasoning ability. It should emphasize the ability to love, as I said, compassion that you want to have in every human being. Now, if that is the kind of emphasis you are having, then the whole classroom process becomes different. Currently in classroom, we want students to sit, the teacher comes, uses a chalk and a blackboard and tries to explain what is there in the textbook. So curriculum has to be rethought. The national curriculum framework that we develop almost every 5 years or every 10 years does attempt this. However, its translation in every state and every school leaves much to be desired, because it is done by great educationists within quotes, and the way they write, it is not very intelligible to the teacher. The teacher finds it difficult to understand what is really desired. So ultimately they are subjected to a very flowery phrase I use, tyranny of the textbook. They are dictated all the time by textbook, and they think as if completion of the textbook is really quality of learning. Unfortunately, this is also reinforced by the kind of examination that takes place. Again, we are not examining the rational ability. We examine what is in the text. In fact, I have been trying to talk to many boards of secondary education, saying you yourself ultimately say that these are the kinds of things you want. For example, you may be aware, Central Board of Secondary Education is now quite clear. It says we want to test high order thinking skills, HOTS they call it, high order thinking skills. Then I ask a question, look at your paper in the board, is it really eliciting and trying to evaluate the higher order thinking skills? If it is not, then there is no point in making proclamation and making a statement, but not doing it that way. So, the whole system of board of secondary education, they have to understand that what they profess also must be evaluated. In a way, let me tell you, there is a very basic principle which people do not appreciate or forget. When you say, oh yeah, that is the right principle, but after all they forget that principle is, you must test at the end what is your aim to achieve. So, nobody says our aim is to know what is written in the book. Everybody says the aim is, as I said, fine human being, employability, rational ability, rational autonomy, whatever you want to call, critical thinking, creative thinking, and there are lots of such phrases that we keep on using. But when it comes to evaluation, examination, we forget all of that and then get tied down to the textbook and the curriculum. So, if you want to improve teaching learning, this should be done. One of the civil society organizations I have been working with, in fact, I told them, if you want to improve learning in the schools, what is important is you emphasize only this part, that our question papers will now be of a different kind and they will ask all this. And let me tell you, in Karnataka this was done in several districts, and it succeeded so much that ultimately state government had to accept that it is a good program, and for the whole state that program was taken up, and there the board examination and others, at least at that time, were framed in this framework with the help of the experts who have been taking up this program of the civil society organization. Now therefore, so the policy framework, the political consensus, a new kind of curriculum, a curriculum that can be understood and be implemented by the teachers. As I said, finally, the kind of testing that should be there, the testing which is testing the aims and objects. Then we come back to existing teachers. If I have taken a stand that they have not been properly trained and they do not have the necessary capability, then there is another problem, right? So, what do we do now? Interestingly, this has been understood by us. After all, I was also a policy maker at one time. This has been understood, and the whole system of support to the teacher to improve his ability, his competence to be able to have high learning has been developed. There is supposed to be a cluster resource center, there is a block resource center, there are diets, district institutes of education and training, where teachers are supposed to go for orientation, and whatever deficiencies we find in them, whatever needs they have for further learning is provided there. However, these are marginalized by currently the government. There only officers or persons in the education department who are not considered to be competent enough are sent there, and those who are so competent or so called competent are posted in the field. Now therefore, this support system is not operating. If the support system were to operate, then with the present teachers we should be able to do much more than what is supposed to be done. So, as you are rightly saying, if you want to improve the quality, then let this support system be made functional. Let that be not only functional but proactive. It is their job to go to the schools, see what is happening, what are the needs of the teachers, developed orientation programs of that kind and effectively implement those orientation programs. These days, because of the right to education, there is a policy that is being debated and in a way implemented in many areas now, what they call PPP, public-private partnership. Now that's interesting. One must understand what does it mean. Public means the government and private means a private agency, which private agency will help in making the schools better and improve learning. But they will do it because they want to earn out of it, because they have to have profit. Therefore, when we talk about non-government organization, let us be clear. There are two kinds of non-government organizations. One, that are seeking profit, and therefore they have entered education and think education is a good area where people have now aspirations, parents want their children to learn, and they have quite a lot of ambition. So they want to take advantage of this. But then there is another set of, let us say, civil society organizations or NGOs, which I will call philanthropic. Their interest is not in earning money. Let me also remind you that in fact education originally was only philanthropic. When modern education began in India, prior to that, in every village there used to be a school, but the school was by a Maulvi or a Panditji. He was not earning anything. He would students would come and they would learn there, right? So, and at the most community would give them rice or whatever, they would provide some support to them, but there was no reason or no purpose of getting profit. Therefore, ultimately a good education can be there only when philanthropic organizations are allowed to come, and we must ban the private organizations in this PPP. What they can do? They can do lots of things, but their much more important thing is, what is the state willing to accept? If the state policy currently is of bringing people who earn profit and therefore help, then there is difficulty. If they are willing to say, okay, state governments and the central government have a clear policy that civil society organizations that do not want any fund from the government, do not want any gain from what is being done, they can do lots of things. I know civil society organization. I was talking to you about the academic support system. Now there are civil society organizations which are helping the District Institute of Education and Training to be better, train them, improve their quality and make them more functional. They are helping the block resource centers. There are civil society organizations that are going to the schools, helping schools. If the number of teachers is not there enough, so they are providing some volunteers who will go help. As you know, in the urban areas and cities and towns, every child usually goes and also gets further support from private tuition, coaching and things like that. In rural areas that is not possible. So there are civil society organizations that are supporting the education process. Some call it Shiksha Protsahan Kendra, some call it Anand Ghar, some call it, give it by various names. But many of these organizations are providing further support to the teaching learning process in the school, so that ultimately learning is of a higher quality. There are other civil society organizations that specialize in developing textbooks which do not become tyrant, the word I used. How the textbooks are open, how they allow the teacher and the student to do lots of things in a more open manner, flexible manner than in a very rigid way. So there are, and these civil society organizations are helping many states that are willing to take their help in developing very good textbooks which are appreciated internationally. Also in curriculum framing, some of them, I know many of the organizations, 2 or 3 of them have specialized in how to make good curriculum.